Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting, hair-raising, fun-filled episode of Radiorama, where, as the name implies, I'll show you how to work on radios. And today we have a German Philips, and the model number is partially obscured. It looks like, unfortunately, I think a lot of the I don't know what model this is, unfortunately, because the numbers are scratched off or have come off. I don't know what that means right there. Ford Anmeter I'm sounding like the Swedish chef. Clearly, I don't know how to read German. Maybe it says something to the effect of make sure and pull mains before you work on the radio, because it's an exclamation point. Then again, some of you German folks will probably be able to say, no, you're completely wrong. It does work, albeit it needs to be overhauled, and I'm not going to plug it in again because I don't want to run risk incinerating the power transformer, which on this one would be very difficult to replace because it's European, and so we don't have as many European sets here in the US, so none of the American ones would fit unless I did some creative hacking of the chassis. The case itself is slightly damaged. We have a crack here, and then the finish is coming off. It's like this ugly gray finish, and whatever's left of the pinstriping, that's gone. So I think I'm going to work in reverse. The electronics I know already work, and working on Philips is not fun at all. And so I'm going to simply pull the chassis and start cleaning up the case, and I'm going to do a paint job on it. I need to repair the cracks, and then it's going to get a nice new paint job. All right, here is the innards. I'm glad the set works because it's got a bunch of tubes in here that we don't have. Like, we don't have hardly any of these Rimlock tubes. UABC80. Surely it's the same as EABC80. And we have a UCH81. I wonder if that's the same as an ECH81. Sure would make sense. I mean, but then again, I don't know. I've run into this before. Well, you have some European tubes, and you think, well, surely they're interchangeable with one another, and they're not. To remove the chassis, you got to unscrew. Well, first of all, this cardboard back kind of slides out like this. And then we're going to need to remove these two screws, and then the whole thing should come out. And the speaker will have to probably come out too. It's not attached to the chassis. Believe it or not, I was right. I translated that, and even though Google Translate does a so-so job, it basically says you need to pull the mains before you service this, meaning don't try to replace the tubes unless the back is off. And now, one thing that is not mentioned on this set, which would have been required in the US, is that this is a hot chassis set. And you were required on American sets to say, warning, one side of the AC line goes to chassis. And then they would have like some warnings about, removing the power cord before you service. A lot of American sets that had a true hot chassis would make it nigh impossible for the user to get to the metal chassis. And I can see they've tried to do that here too. All of your jacks and plugs or speakers and antennas are on this piece of plastic versus being on metal. And the knobs are held on with set screws, so you can't really pull them off. I'm seeing if the controls themselves are actually isolated physically. Let's see. No, they're not. They are going directly to the chassis, so that hints to why they have the screw-on knobs, so you can't yank them off of there. It's very unusual. Most European sets do not use a hot chassis design. I mean, the advantage is obvious. It's a lot cheaper. But as soon as I pulled this off, and I was like, that is not a power transformer. It's totally the output transformer for the speaker, and that's the only transformer in the entire set. Luckily, the set came apart. I was able to get the glass, the back, the front panel, that off. And I need to do some repairs. I need to fill that in with some glue and fill this crack in here. I think before I do that, I'm going to clean the crap out of it, just so I make sure that all the cracks that I filled the glue into are clean, so it grabs real well. Alright, well, this is hard to film. I fixed the crack, so now I've got it clamped so it'll secure it down really well. Since I'm waiting for that to cure, I'm going to clean the chassis. I know it's not necessary, but I just like doing it anyway. And what I do is I'll go over it with a paintbrush to get the light, the clingy stuff off, and then I'll get my leaf blower. This is why I'm doing it outside, otherwise I'd make myself sneeze. Alright, I want to get my leaf blower. There's the leaf blower. You see how much dust just blew off there? I know you don't have to do this, but I kind of prefer working on a clean chassis. If anything, you can see the parts easier. Clean radio is a happy radio. That's something I just made up. Alright, so that's looking a lot better. And so, time to take it back in and we'll take a look at what's going on in the capacitor land. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. I had to remove the tube to read the value on this, but it says 50 plus 100 microfarads at roughly 250 volts each, and there's no indicator of what value is what, but my experience working on these is that they're marked with color codes underneath. And let me get my flashlight out so you can see this. So I'm looking at this, and we have a big power resistor going to UCH 81. Let's see, where's the other one go to? Let's follow this brown wire. I believe it's going to the rectifier. Let's see. Yes, it is. So, usually your lower value electrolytics are going to your rectifier. That means the other side is by default the 100 microfarad capacitor. Other than that, we've got a bunch of nasty little paper caps. There's another electrolytic here. These little deer turd looking things, these guys are always bad. And they're red in puffs. So it says 2700 puffs. That calculates into 0.0027 microfarads. I'm not sure. Don't watch my show. Alright, this one here says 0.02 rated microfarads. And so you just need to replace like with like or thereabouts. It's not super specific. If you say you want within 20% of the specs of the capacitor, you should be okay. Okay, so I've got my paint set up here. Let's save all the old refrigerator boxes and crap like that. And I'm looking where the wind's going. It's going probably about that way. So I've got the set up in the direction of the wind. I decided not to use that yellow. I was like, they didn't really use crazy colors in Europe as much as we did, so I'm going to go with a more refined burgundy red. And I've prepped and cleaned all the surface. I'm going to make sure the paint's going to really adhere. So I just sanded it down very gently so the paint will have something to grab into. I'm not going to film painting it because it's very tedious and I don't want to make any runs. Alright, I decided to work on this set on the chassis, and the first thing I did is I wanted to see what the actual operating voltages of the electrolytics are, and it's a lot lower than what they're rated for. Probably because this could also operate on 220 volts. Being a hot chassis set, 120 volts is all that can come out of the tap here. So this is actually sitting, both of these electrolytics here are sitting at about 110 volts or so. It actually takes a really long time to warm up. And these bulbs don't seem to be glowing very brightly, so I'm wondering if the set is operating a bit low. It's not the end of the world, it works pretty well, and it'll help preserve things like the tubes from, burning out prematurely. Okay, so the electrolytics are now replaced. I admit that wasn't easy, but I had to be creative. One's here, then I relocated one all the way over here, because again, the chassis is ground. I can move them anywhere that is convenient. So now that that's done, we need to go in and start replacing some of these paper capacitors, and those are these guys. That one, that one, that one, this one, and there's a few more here. This one, on the other hand, where you see it's clear like that, that's polystyrene, so you don't have to worry about that. It's not going to leak. So there's a decent amount in here, but not a huge amount, and luckily It's not as bad as some Philips that I've worked on where they'll just bury stuff and you can't get to it without like disassembling. So this is not the worst Philips I've worked on. The worst one I have in my collection is called a Biampli, and it's got 2 separate amplifiers, one for each speaker. Talk about complicated. Okay, well this is after the case kind of sitting here and drying for about 20 minutes, and it does look pretty good. I think that color is going to look pretty swell once it's all put back together again. All right, she's recapped. Turned out that guy was also a plastic cap, so it is okay. That electrolytic has very little voltage on it, so I'm not concerned about it. It's probably just fine. So let's turn it on and see what it does. And again, I want to stress how absolutely slow this thing is to warm up. Like, I've never experienced a radio quite this slow. Well, I thought it was on. Maybe it's not working anymore. How embarrassing would that be? Well, I'll be darned, she's not coming on, so something bad has happened. So you plug it in, you know. Alright, so now it's really on versus where it wasn't. Now you see, like that, the pilot lights are now just barely starting to glow. And when it first started doing this, I thought, there's bound to be a major short somewhere, because it shouldn't be like that dim, you know. But I've noticed, like you see, they're gradually getting brighter and brighter. I'm wondering if it has something to do with there's a massive power resistor up on top, and probably when you switch from 220 to 120, it's probably loading up that resistor, and so it's just taking a lot longer for things to get going. It's painfully slow. Like, I've been sitting here yakking away for who knows, like 35, 40 seconds, and we still don't have any sound. I'm looking at this, and I've been talking for almost a full minute, and it still is warming up. There we go. All right. So it is now recapped, as fun as that was. It's just a slow warmer-upper. I'll have to tell the user, you know, when you get this thing, make sure and like go to the bathroom or something and come back, because by then it'll be warmed up. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is clean the tone and volume control here. There we go. I'm just going to twist that back and forth, get it worked in real well. Doesn't hurt to clean these controls either. Well, these contact switches, they're prone to getting dirty. So I'll work those back and forth. Maybe spray them again. Excuse me. Whew. I'm drinking really good beer lately. It's called Horologist Double IPA, made by Knee Deep Brewing Company out of Auburn, California. It's very good. It's one of my favorite places to go in the summer. There's a huge river up there. That's hot. You just throw your raft in there and lays around all day. Okay, so this electronics from a basics perspective is now done. It does have an audio input, which I am going to add later, but I think I'm going to flip this over and clean the top of the chassis some more because it's so filled with dust bunnies. Okay, there were quite a few caps up the top side as well, so I've replaced those guys. And now I'm going to lubricate the tuning condenser and all the little teeny little intricate pulleys that are associated with it. Make sure not to get any on the pulley surfaces, or you'll get the belts will start to slip, or the string will slip. So I just usually just touch these guys just a little bit. You don't need much. Let's get this guy back here. The FM. Let's see. I'm trying to be careful not to get anything on those surfaces. Now, let's see. That feels good. Yeah, it's starting to feel a lot more smooth. It's just nicer for the consumer, nicer feel. All right, next step in our adventure of getting this radio restored, I'm going to run an audio line through the original audio connection. This is a hot chassis, so we'll need to go through an isolation transformer, but I wasn't sure which one of these was which, and so I tested them out, running it through my big isolation transformer. And this is the configuration that I want right here. Again, the radio takes forever to warm up. So that's coming through my Bluetooth receiver. Anyway, what I'm going to do is run it through one of these isolation transformers. I think I'm going to use maybe a 6-volt transformer. It's 110 volts in and 6 volts out. Basically, this is an elaborate wall wart. You can get these on Alibaba. You have to order a crap ton of them, so if you're in the business like I am, it's worth ordering 100 at a time. Works out to be about 88 cents a piece. Or you can, if you have any wall warts laying around the house, you can crack those open, use the same thing. So anyway, we're going to put this in between the incoming line and the chassis, again, because it's a hot chassis. We don't want anyone to get shocked or electrocuted, the other nasty word. And it's not going to, I found no place to mount it in here. Both top and bottom are crammed, so it's going to go inside the case. So I'm going to go ahead and run the wiring for the just a line, which will be this guy going to the isolation transformer. I don't know how long I'm going to have to elongate it, so I made it extra long. That'll come out the back here. We'll put the set back in the cabinet, and then we will attach and glue the transformer. Well, I forgot to film the last part, but anyway, this is the isolation transformer, and the incoming audio line is going in through the secondary winding, and there's a set of resistors in there, and that's the right and left channels tied together, and then I have line going to the input on the set. Usually I show what I'm doing, but what I'm doing is I'm splitting the right and left channels here. I put this glue over the top of it because I'm always worried, what if it comes unglued from the radio and it lands on something? I don't want anything electrical to possibly get to that. So it's all sealed up. All right. She is actually a pretty nice sounding radio. The isolation transformer actually boosts the signal a little bit. Definitely like the lighting effect this gives. At night it must look really pretty. Anyway, the radio's working good as well.
You have said, Karen, that you're either a plotter or a pantser, meaning seat of your pants.
I started to get earaches and just was the sweat of what.
I might need to put a little bit of a longer antenna on FM.
And I try when I'm...
Es de inyección directa de gasolina.
And I think I can't stress enough for people to get to the phone and dial 1-800.
Not bad sounding for a little radio. Anyway, that concludes this episode. Another one has crossed my bench and survived, so that's a good thing. So until the next time something does in fact crawl across my workbench, I see you guys next time. Adios.